Hey, sugar. That does not sound right coming out of me, does it? Anyways, so I got my Mondo Rogue here to unbox. This is the first figure I ever ordered from Mondo directly. It's the X-Men animated series Rogue figure done in the cel-shaded paint style as they do. I've never owned a figure that has that cel-shaded paint style. I've always wanted to. I've always thought it was really beautiful and cool. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago on Instagram, I started seeing a lot of custom artists employing that style, where they started doing this cel-shaded look on like Transformers and Gundam model kits. And then I started seeing companies a few years after that, and now it seems to be a trend where it's got its own home in the collecting verse, if you will, and Mondo is known for doing those. And so I was pretty excited. Rogue, as you may know from watching my previous videos, like my X-Men Danger Room diorama or my other So-So Toys Rogue unboxing video, I'm a huge fan of X-Men, and I'm an enormous fan of Rogue. This is me holding the box after I open the figure. It's not present, but there's a nice little spiel here written by Eric and Julia Lewald, who were the original 2 main showrunners, if I'm not mistaken, for the X-Men animated series back in the early 90s, and they have something to say for us about our girl Rogue. Rogue. Rogue is our strongest X-Men, yet the most vulnerable. One ungloved touch and her world turns upside down. Born in rural Mississippi, she ran from a world that didn't understand her, frightened by her emerging ability to briefly absorb not only the powers, but the mind of anyone she contacts skin to skin. Taken in by a caring, quote-unquote, mystique, Rogue is tricked into latching onto mutant Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, and not letting go. This prolonged absorption leaves Danvers comatose while allowing Rogue to retain Danvers' powers of flight and super strength. The result is a remarkably powerful young woman who is cursed with the knowledge that she has robbed an innocent person of her life and memories, and that she must now face her own future without the simple comfort of human touch. Charles Xavier has worked wonders with Rogue's ability to live with her conflicted self, and the love of fellow X-Men, Gambit, has given her strength. But will she ever truly find peace? Eric Lewald and Julie Lewald. Let's find out. As I said, I love Rogue, and that really comes from my love of the animated series. I really like this concept of this paint style. I have to admit, though, there are things about this figure I like, and there's some things that I'm not really satisfied with. Actually, I feel like the choice of painting style on the face, it looks more like an animated doll to me than it does actually look like Rogue. It looks nice, don't get me wrong. I think it looks nice, but I feel like it feels more like an animated doll of Rogue than Rogue, the animated character, if that makes sense. Another thing I'm not crazy about is the way the hair looks. I think it looks like one style from the back, one style from the front, but as soon as you go from the side, there doesn't seem to be a cohesive style to me. It kind of looks like 2 things that kind of clamshelled together, which is kind of what it is, to be honest, design-wise. And then I hate to say it, but the paint and the finish quality on my figure is not as good as I would have hoped. And let me show you what I mean. So up in the hair here, you can see glue leaching out in the seams in several different areas. There are yellowy brown spots on at least 3 or 4 places on the front of the hair where it looks like somebody touched the paint with a bare hand before it was cured, or maybe it's a little bit of yellow overspray from something else. There is a spot on the back, 3 little spots where paint has been removed from touching before the paint was clearly cured. And on the back left leg, on the very top of it, there's a splatter of yellow and a splatter of green that shouldn't be there. Several little spots where there's little artifacts that look, I don't know if they're mold injection points that didn't get properly finished. Some of them I think may be actual little flakes of paint, dried paint from other areas in the painting workshop that landed when they painted or when they cured it and got stuck on there. There's a couple down by her right ankle. There's an artifact on the side of her right calf. There's little pieces like this all over, and then there's like some brown scuffs on her boots that's the way she came out of the package. And For it to be in this first run right away like that is a little disappointing to me. I love the way the figure looks overall, especially from like a neutral front pose and a neutral rear pose. I think she looks great. I think she looks like the cartoon, especially from a few feet away. But looking at it closely, I am a little disappointed in that. Also, on the highest areas of her chest here, there is, looks like the finish got rubbed off on the yellow. So right there on the two highest areas of her chest, there's like some rub marks, and it's also slightly shinier, showing that the finish or the paint there, I don't know which, was actually rubbed off by the packaging, I think. So it got put on and then probably shook back and forth in the package and rubbed off on the two highest points. I got a couple other spots on the front of the legs here, probably cast in yellow, and then the two greens look like maybe they're screen printed on and UV cured. And then this black line, because it's a raised paint, I can feel it. It looks like maybe they have silicone, they have latex gloves on, they dip it in the vinyl paint, and then they hand do that line and then put it under a UV cure light. I'm imagining that's probably how that's done. Definitely looks like it was done in a rush, or they didn't pay attention to their lines, because there's two splits in my paint here. They honestly look like somebody took a fingernail and went tip, tip, right there. Maybe there was like bubbles there and they popped them, but it dried and it doesn't look good. The quality's not good there. I got the same thing on the upper side of the left leg here as well. Not really crazy about that. Actually looking closer to at the torso, I don't know if this is a paint defect or a molding defect. There's a weird blob here. The elbow joints are really, really stiff. I had to work them back and forth quite a bit before they would release. I don't know why that is, but they're super, super stiff. I do wish the shoulders could have gotten higher than this. And I really, really wish there was a sculpt in which I could face her forward, because I would have really liked to do like some type of flying or flying punch pose with her, where I could have tilted her kind of like she is in the intro to the show where she's flying, but I can only have her looking forward, looking down, or looking straight at the camera instead of where she's flying. So it looks a little like she's falling maybe instead of flying, you know. So her posing is kind of limited to only like maybe standing neutral, reaching, or clenching fists, or like standing and punching, or like a takeoff. You can't really do any flight poses, which, you know, it's okay. Everything's going to be limited. I do think this choice to do the upper flare out on the boot is interesting. I don't really have a criticism of it one way or the other. I don't have any figures that do anything like this, so this is new for me. It's clearly meant as a way to hide the paint lines. Creatively there, they've got this little upper flange that is meant to push into place. You can see they painted the intersecting lines to match, so it became kind of obvious once you look at it where that needs to go and what the intention was. I feel like instead of having this be a floating piece and you have this butterfly joint here, you could have molded this with this and created a swivel here so I could turn her leg out to get more posing. I think I would have preferred that, and it also would have been a hidden joint. There's just, you know, there's things I would have done differently. There's a couple missing chunks of paint, just little things here where I really think if they just slowed down a little, they could have done better. There is some drips in the paint here on her jacket, and some artifacting going on with like overspray and stuff being torn away. I just feel like this was definitely painted in a rush, and whoever handled it didn't pay attention to how they were handling it. Because as somebody who paints dioramas and action figures, I've seen these types of artifacts get created by my own hands, so I know how they happen. And to me, they always happen when I'm in a rush or not paying attention to where my other hand is, or where I'm laying something down, or not letting something cure, or thinking something's cured. So to me, that's just indicative of someone who's in a rush, because I usually work fast. I understand that. But when I'm buying a expensive product like this, I do expect it to come a little bit better than this. So I like it. I wouldn't say I love it. If it didn't have these paint defects and the hair shape was a little bit different, or there was a sculpt that could turn up, I'd probably say I love it. I think the team at Mondo did a wonderful job with this. There's just some personal things I would have liked differently, as I explained, but I think my main criticisms here are from the factory. So I will reach out to Mondo and see if maybe I can get a replacement of this. If I would be happy to send it back and get a new one. If the quality's the same as this one, then I will just keep this one. But if they can get me one of better quality, I'm happy to exchange it and keep her. But she is relatively top heavy because of her hair. Every Rogue figure I've ever had in any scale has had that problem, so I kind of expect that, and I'm not going to be upset about that. Someday I feel like somebody should invent a hairstyle for Rogue where there's some dynamicness to it, or it's a void inside, so it's lighter, hollow. I don't know how that could be achieved, but manufacturing gods, if you could will that into existence, that would be really, really cool. Something that I did want to do, though, was compare her cell shading paint job to the way it actually looked in the original cellular paintings from the show. This is an original hand-painted animation cell from X-Men the Animated Series. Oops, there we go. I don't know how it looks over there, but this is an original cell that I got. I bought this at auction several years ago, one of my prized possessions. I hope someday to have Cal Dodd, who did the voice of Wolverine, and Lenore Zahn, who did the voice of Rogue, sign this for me. And I don't remember who did the voice of Longshot. I don't know if they're still around, but obviously I'd like to get that as well. But comparing Rogue to the actual cell image here, pretty much dead on. All the lines are there. But I do notice Rogue has a red coloration in her X-Men X here, and she doesn't here. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know if this was changed. I can't remember if this was changed in the show at any point. That's the only inconsistency I can find. But the actual shading lines and everything, her little ab lines and her rib lines, they're all painted in the correct place. Looks great. Color of the jacket, coloration of the jacket looks great. Everything's dead on. But looking again at this and that, her hair does seem, hair's a little off. Again, looking at the face on this looks more like a doll painted face rather than a Rogue. But anyways, I love Rogue. So tell me what you think with yours that you got. I talked to 2 other collectors that received theirs already and opened theirs. They had no problems with the paint. So maybe I just got one of those ones that's one of those ones. So I'm not trying to pick on Mondo here or anything like that. I love all those guys over there. I like watching them on live streams. It's always cool to know that the people who you're buying something from, you could probably hang with, and I feel that way about Fan Plastic 4 and Attack Peter and everybody over there working at Mondo, who I've seen on streams. You guys rock. I just think maybe the factory rushed this piece. So Mondo, keep killing it with the design. Just maybe get on your factory and make sure that the QC is consistent through all the figures. But let me know what you think. Would you buy this? Would you like this? Is it worth it? Would you rather have a realistic looking one? Do you like the cell shaded paint styles? All that jazz. Thanks for stopping by. Check out my live streams where I teach you how to make dioramas. Check out my take on the X-Men's Danger Room transforming diorama that I made, where I also share some of my thoughts on why I love characters like Rogue and why I love the X-Men. You have a good day. We'll see you later, sugar.